Hey guys, John here. Wanted to get another quick video out to you today. Today I wanted to talk about job security, and I've sort of talked about this a little bit before how I think it's mostly an illusion these days, but I wanted to talk a little bit more about it because I think if you watch some of the trends that are out there that are happening, at least to me, it's becoming more and more, and I'll admit in my 100% biased mind because this is what I do, but does seem, if you just look at the numbers, that it's becoming more and more obvious that I think the sort of standard tech job that I think a lot of developers are after is going to become more and more obsolete. Maybe that's not the word. Maybe it's rare. Whatever it is, there's going to be comparatively fewer and fewer of those. And the caveat I'll make here is that I think number-wise, it might go up because the industry as a whole is growing. But percentage-wise of the industry, probably going to go down. And with more and more people getting into it, it just means that there's going to be fewer of those jobs actually available. And so I think that's sort of where this is heading. I want to go through why I think that is and then what you can do to sort of deal with that. So what you're looking at is every year Upwork puts out this sort of state of freelancing report where they break down the raw data related to freelancing and independent contracting work. Now, this is Upwork, and so they sort of have a bias here as well. However, a lot of this is just raw data that we're looking at. So I think we can kind of take it at face value, maybe not their interpretations of it, but what the actual data says. And one of the interesting things is right off the bat that we see is that in the US at least 36% of the workforce as of 2017 was already freelancing. And when you look kind of dig into that, you can see the freelance workforce growth is accelerating and has outpaced overall US workforce growth by 3 times since 2014. So the freelance sort of sector of the U.S. economy is growing 3 times as fast as the overall sort of workforce as a whole. So what that points to is not only are a lot of people already freelancing, 36% of the workforce, but that the pace at which people are starting to do that is much faster than the overall workforce rate. So it's likely to continue in that direction. And if it continues at current rates, it'll be by 2027 that the majority of the U.S. workforce will freelance. So over 50% of the entire workforce will freelance. Now, if you, again, dig into some of the numbers here, one of the things that was interesting to me is it says that 54% of the U.S. workforce said they're not very confident that the work they do will exist 20 years from now. So there's a lot of people that are becoming more and more concerned about the work that they are doing. It's just not going to be around in the next 10 to 20 years. And so reskilling, learning new skills and so forth, which is something we're sort of accustomed to, is very critical. But of those people, 30% of people that are non-freelancers are doing it compared to 55% of freelancers who participated in some skill-related education in the last 6 months. So freelancers as a whole are more adept, more attuned, more active in reskilling themselves compared to non-freelancers. Now, again, among those who freelance, 63% believe that a diversified portfolio of clients is more secure than just relying on one employer. And to me, this is probably the biggest point that I sort of pull out of all of this, because this is something that I came to a while back and have really sort of realized. So this has a sort of a personal tone to it for me. But once you get into it and you get sort of a little bit of skill at getting clients and so forth, you become a lot more confident and you realize that this is true, that having a sort of diversified set of either clients or ways that you make income from your coding skills is a lot more secure than a job, which sort of kind of flies in the face of what a lot of people think. A lot of people want to get a job for job security. And one of the thof that sort of speaks to this that I saw the other day is this whole idea of these Fortune 500 companies and some of the data that we're getting related to that. So one of the big ones is a lot of Fortune 500 companies, the average life expectancy in 1955 was 75 years. And this says 60 years in the 50s. There's another study that I saw that it was 55, it was 75 years It's somewhere around there. Today, it's, again, this says less than 20. One I saw said 15 years. So the average life expectancy of a Fortune 500 company, these are big, successful companies, the average lifespan is about 1/5 of what it was just 50, 60 years ago. If you look at startups, I don't have a thing on that here, but it's pretty common knowledge. It's about 90% of startups that fail. I think the average lifespan of a startup is about 11 months. Most fail within their first year. So if you're thinking, well, I'm not going to go for a big traditional company, I'll go to a startup. A lot of those are very sort of risky as well, because a lot of those fail. So the point that I'm sort of making with all of this is, if you're banking on this whole, I would almost call it antiquated, but maybe common idea that going to college, getting a tech degree, getting a good job with a big company or startup, that being sort of your meal ticket and your security for the next 20 to 30 years, that security you feel when thinking about that today is mostly an illusion. It's just not the way that it used to be. And the truth is that those companies go out of business all the time. Startups especially are even more fleeting. So in my mind, building your own thing that you control is really the way to actually get any sort of real security. Now, I do want to say one of the maybe things that runs counter to this is, you've probably seen some of the articles out there talking about how these big companies like Yahoo and IBM and so forth have called back a lot of their remote workers. So there are these big companies that were moving towards having remote workers and people working from home and so forth. And there were a number of them that recalled them. But if you actually, like, for example, dig into this article here, what you see is that they sort of couch that move as a risk, not as something that they sort of did because they knew it was going to make things better. What it came down to is these companies, again, going back to these Fortune 500 companies that are having a lot of trouble staying alive, these companies are experiencing that, and so they're kind of getting desperate, and they're sort of trying whatever they can, and they knew bringing these people back was a risk because their employees really liked it. And so they sort of knew it was a risk, but they were trying desperately for anything to try and revitalize their company. And this is what they tried. So it's less positioned as, or was done less as a, remote work, homework is bad, and we're just bringing people back. It was more as a sort of a desperate attempt to try and figure out a way to save their company, and it may or may not work. So again, that's something that you may hear people say that's out there. It's not quite exactly the way a lot of people position it. So again, going back to, I just sort of think that the best way to get real security is to own the thing that is providing your income, your finance, is providing your livelihood for you. And yeah, freelancing takes a lot of work, and there are ups and downs. And it's true that clients at times can be, we'll say, fun, if that's the word you want to use. But in my mind, to me, that's a hell of a lot better than fooling yourself into believing that you're set with some big company or some startup, only to have the rug pulled out from underneath you when you least expect it. Plus, there's the sort of the beyond the security part of it. You can set your own hours. You can only work on the things you want to. You can charge what you want. You can take time off when you want, instead of being beholden to some tech bro CEO and all that sort of thing. So that is out there as a possibility when it comes to what you can do with freelancing. At least that's how it is when you sort of master the art of getting clients and are able to do that sort of thing. But I see a lot of developers and freelancers out there who sort of struggle with this, and this is why they avoid freelancing. This is why they don't get into it, because they don't really understand that art or that process of getting clients, and so there's a lot of fear there and so forth. And what I've noticed with a lot of freelancers is it's kind of comes across as a desperate sort of mindset. It's almost begging for work. I actually have people who email me about every day, every other day, and it's literally them begging me for work, even though I don't subcontract or do anything. Nowhere do I say that I do that. I get people who still sort of beg me to hire them when I don't have anything to hire them for. And, it's sort of that mindset. And I guess the analogy I would use, which some people may not like, but it's sort of like that weird guy at the bar who's just sort of standing there, not doing anything, but just hoping that, some hot girl falls in his lap. Like, that's not going to happen. Then you compare that sort of mindset with people like this. So Oleski, you can see here, 400K earned on Upwork. Jerry G, 300,000 plus earned on Upwork. Pavel here is 500K plus earned on Upwork. There's agencies here who have made, there's one agency on here that's made over 30 million here on Upwork. So you see these sort of people and you compare their mindset with the mindset of the people that are sort of desperate for work. And you understand that these people sort of understand a little bit about how attraction works and how to get clients to actually chase them. And it's a totally different mindset. These guys are the picky ones. They qualify their clients, not the other way around. And there's really no desperation. There's zero desperation when it comes to the way these guys sort of interact. Now, one of the things that I was fortunate enough to fall into was to get thrown into the sort of the fire of face-to-face sales when I was 20. I started working part-time at a shoe store in a mall. Really had no idea, but it actually was a really hardcore direct sales type company. They had I did well. They had a manager and training program that I got involved with. I became assistant manager, was promoted to manager in about, it was an 18-month manager and training program, but I was promoted to manage my own store in about 9 months. Completely turned around a store, broke a bunch of records, all this stuff. But I was lucky enough, and I say lucky enough now, to be thrown into that, to learn that when, I probably never would have. And had I not got started in that company, even to this day, I probably wouldn't have. And I had a mentor who taught me everything that he knew, and I learned a ton about sales and got really, really good at it. So when I started freelancing, I was able to sort of apply that to my own freelancing. And the big secret that I learned from him, the thing that he constantly harped on me about and was right, and what helped me, someone who is like a jock construction worker, not really, someone who is this natural salesperson, definitely an introvert. The big thing that he harped on with me that made all the difference was understanding that sales was not some magic thing. It's a process. So it's not this thing that you're naturally born with or not. Certainly some people are more outgoing than others, and that can help. But I myself, I'm 100% an introvert. May not seem like it. I don't know. But it may or may not seem like it with these YouTube videos. But I very much am more of an introvert. But these sort of natural outgoing people, I kicked the pants off of them when I did face-to-face sales. And it wasn't anything because I'm super smart or it wasn't anything like that. It was because I was dogged about the process. I had the process hammered into my head by the person who taught me. So when I became a manager and I started training other salespeople, I pounded that process into their head as well. And that made everybody better. And I could hire almost anybody and teach them that process, and they could have success because it wasn't about being outgoing. It wasn't about having natural charisma or any of that crap that a lot of people say when it comes to sales. It was about understanding the process and just doggedly implementing it with every single person that you came in contact with too. And what I think is the best part for developers in particular with this is we are sort of naturally linear, process-oriented thinkers. So when we get a process, man, and we understand it, we can really run with that. We get all the inner workings. We sort of geek out on that stuff. And what happens is when you get the process and you start using it and you see it working and you start to understand all the little nuances, you can get damn good at it. And so it's something that developers, I think, actually are more inclined to be good at sales once they understand it's a process, once they understand what that process is. In any case, this process, what I learned and how applying it to freelance, this is what I teach you in my Freelancing on Upwork course. And it's more than just Upwork. It's fundamental, those fundamental sales skills that I learned applied to freelancing. And a lot of people might hear that and wonder, well, okay, but is it actually working for people? And if you take a look at my course over on Skillshare, this is my most reviewed course, and it's the highest rated of all my courses. 24 out of 25 students recommend it. So there's always somebody, right? But that's what, 96% recommendation rate. And you can see some of the comments here. You know, thorough class with a lot of information. It's helped me to see that Upwork can work for me. Thanks for the great info. I got immediate results from a client the first day I changed a few things. A must for those who embark on home-based jobs. A thorough look into what's required to build a strong profile in Upwork. As you see here, it says it also covers making pitches, asking for a sale, building trust with potential clients. There's a lot more than just click here, do this with your Upwork. It's about teaching you Upwork, but teaching you those fundamental sales skills so you can be good at freelancing no matter what you do. So again, those are just some of the different comments on there. So obviously, you know, the question of does this stuff work or not? Obviously it does. And the great thing about this is, for, you know, if you're someone that's like, well, okay, but, you know, is it worth the risk or whatever? You really don't have to risk anything, because you can get started with this for nothing over on Skillshare. As a teacher, I can give you a 2-month free trial. So you can take the full course. You get the full thing when you sign up for the trial. You can take the full course, go through all the lessons in that time, and then cancel any time before the 2 months is up, and you never pay a penny. So, I don't know, it sort of seems like that's at least worth a shot, but that's up to you to decide. The one thing I want to make sure and sort of warn you about is this stuff isn't some magic trick that suddenly, oh, you say this line or you do this or you do that. It's not a gimmick. It's not a trick. It's about concepts. It's about fundamental principles, and it takes work. It takes some thinking. It takes some researching. It takes some want to. So if you're not ready to work, then don't enroll in the course, because it's just going to be a waste of time for you. So, but if you are, then I think you can learn a ton about freelancing, about sales, and about how to get good at that art and master that art of client getting. Anyway, the link to get started with it, you can just go to upwork101.com. That'll give you all the links that you need. There's a big button on there for you to get the 2-month trial. Tells you a little bit more about the course and all of that. So again, upwork101.com if you want to get started with the course. All right, guys, that'll do it for today's video. Thanks for watching. We'll talk to you next time.